Hello there, my name is Thomas W. Timbrooks, and I am running for the United States House of Representatives for Oregon's 6th Congressional District in 2026. I'm running for the Republican Party, and my whole idea is I want to make Oregon's 6th Congressional District America's greatest congressional district. Hi there, this is me. I know, that guy right there, that's one good-looking guy. This is what I look like in person. I'm almost as good-looking in person as I am on the campaign posters. Okay, so the reason I'm putting these videos together is because I want the people of Oregon to understand who I am, the kind of person I am. I don't want to go off of scripted things because the scripts are they're so cold, they're so impersonal. You're not electing a script. You know, you're not electing a script to go to Washington, D.C. and represent you. You're electing a human being. Human beings, this is not AI, this is actually me. If I do put up something that's AI, I'll let you know that, oh, that's my microphone. I got to make sure the microphone is working. So if I do an AI video, which I may do at some point, yeah, I'll let you know this is AI and it's just basically a script, you know, but yeah, right now, campaigning, I don't want you to have to listen to a script. I want you to understand who I am. I want you to get an understanding of the person that you will be sending to Washington, D.C., okay? So in this thing, I got my little slides here. Perception marketing and the loss of personal agency, how political narratives replace individual judgment. And in my last presentation, I was talking about marketing also, and in the one before that, I was doing marketing. This is like 3 or 4 parts. I might make 5 parts. I don't know. The whole deal is here, I want to move away from partisan politics. I want to move away from politics altogether because, well, not politics altogether, but political marketing altogether. The whole purpose of political marketing is to try to get the consumer to increase the value of what they want over the value of what they have. And political marketing does that. And a lot of times, because we're human, we succumb to the forces of marketing, which is perfectly natural because, I mean, American marketing is the greatest marketing in the world because we're Americans. And anytime Americans do anything, it's the best it can possibly be done. All right? I mean, let's look at it. Name something that America doesn't do better than everybody in the world. Can't name it, right? So there, Americans do everything better than everybody else. Our marketing, our political marketing is better than everybody else's political marketing. It is so good that you can actually, the political marketing people can actually get you to make decisions that are against your best interest. And that's the whole nature of this presentation here. I'm going to drink some water. So who is deciding what you believe? You? Or is it political marketing? In modern politics, perception often becomes reality. And this is an interesting little concept. A long time ago, years ago, I'm from Arizona. I was born and raised in Arizona. I got my college degree in Arizona, my bachelor's degree. I went to Arizona State University. It's a good little place, everything. So I got my engineering degree while I was working in the semiconductor community. But semiconductor community, I wanted a little bit of a change, so I went to aerospace. There's this place in Tucson, Arizona, that manufactured a ballistic missile intercept system called the exoatmospheric kill vehicle, right? Now, while I was there, I had an opportunity to talk to some of the most intelligent human beings I've ever met in my entire life. These people are just mind-blowingly brilliant. Yeah, so what was I doing there, right? Anyways, one of the managers there told me something that just, I mean, it was so brilliant, so beyond my capacity to understand that I thought, you know, he was joking. I thought this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And what he said was, in the world of politics, perception is reality. And I'm like, perception is not reality. Reality is reality. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that guy's true. I mean, anytime you vote for somebody, you're not really voting for that person. You're voting for the perception that person has created. And I mean, let's think about this. You know, back in time, perception has become reality. And so the person that you generally vote for isn't necessarily the best person for the job. The person that you're going to vote for is the person whose image has been presented better than anybody else's image. So, you know, when we think about that in the world of politics, perception is reality. And that's kind of an important thing to understand. And that's really why I'm making these videos, is because I want the reality to be more important than the perception. I want you, the voter, to understand the reality associated with putting somebody like myself in a position, Washington, D.C. That I'm a reality over perception person. I am a function over form person. I take a systems approach to any problem, and this is something that I'm kind of covering in my little thing here. Political marketing doesn't persuade; it installs narratives. It bypasses logic. It targets emotion. It creates identity alignment. It discourages independent thought. Marketing plants the seed, and followers grow that seed. The wise mind versus the emotional mind. And this is something I covered in a couple of my videos, the last one. You have the emotional mind and the logical mind. Human beings are emotional creatures that think logically. Between the emotional and the logical mind, you have the wise mind. And the wise mind appreciates each side, but understands our decisions that are emotional, purely emotional, very often aren't the best decisions. But the decisions we make that are extremely logical, a lot of times they don't really appreciate the humanity involved. You know, I mean, the logical mind says, I want the most fuel efficient and cheapest vehicle possible. And this is what Henry Ford did. Henry Ford came along. Henry Ford said, you can have any color you want. This car that I'm manufacturing, it's the cheapest car in America. It's the best possible value. You can have it any color you want as long as it's black. Well, that's a very logical conclusion, you know, because one color, you know, if that car is just one color, just available one color, that each car can be, you know, provided for, like, let's say $10 less. Well, back in the 1920s, you could get as much gas as you're going to need in a year for $10, but your car is going to be black. So let's say another car company comes along and they make something exactly like the Model T, but you can have it in white or black, okay? You just have to pay $10 extra. Is it worth giving up a year's worth of gas to get a car that's white? The logical mind is going to tell you no. But your emotional mind is going to say, I kind of want a white car. That's where we have to appreciate the wise mind. The wise mind understands that, yes, this car is more expensive, and yes, this car, you know, the Model T is less expensive, but when you're driving around town, there really is an emotional appeal to having a car. So if the person feels that having a white car instead of a black car is, you know, has some kind of emotional value, then, you know, we can go ahead and do that. Okay, because all of the decisions that are made aren't necessarily logical. A lot of them are very emotional. And if you have an emotional appeal with some of the things that you possess, then, you know, fine. get the color car you want, get the computer you want, get the clothing that you want. I mean, this is the clothing I want. I feel comfortable in this clothing. Other people will be, oh, no, suit and tie. Every time you get in public, suit and tie. That's perception over reality. This is the reality. I'm giving you the reality. I'm a very simple person, not fancy. If I do go to Congress, of course, if you go to the House of Representatives, you're going to wear a suit. I'll wear a suit and tie to Congress. I'm not going to embarrass the people of Oregon by showing up to Congress in my overalls. But I'm not going to wear the suit because I think it makes me a better person. I'm just going to say, okay, well, suit and tie, that's the uniform for Congress. Let's go ahead and do suit and tie. Okay, and that's what I'm talking about when I say, the wise mind versus the emotional mind. The two-decision system, the wise mind is logical plus emotional balance, independent evaluation, open to evidence. The emotional mind is reactivity, group alignment, and narrative loyalty. So the political marketing works by suppressing the wise mind. So if you have, if you've got a decision that you made, the wise mind is making your political decisions for you. Political marketing is going to try to take you away from your wise mind. Now remember, I'm a Republican, but I don't hate Democrats. I am a conservative, but I don't hate liberals. I want liberals to give me information. I want Democrats to feed me information. Politics is the profession of collecting and utilizing information. Information is the most valuable commodity in the world. So if somebody gives me information, I'm going to use it. But here's the thing. Marketing is going to take you away from the wise mind. Your wise mind is going to tell you, yeah, this guy's pretty good. I'm going to vote for him because he's not too emotional. He's not too logical. He appreciates the wise mind. I like that. I'm going to vote for him. So political marketing is going to say, ooh, but he's too good looking to be a good representative. And I agree with you. As good looking a guy as I am, you probably don't want to trust me. But yeah, I guarantee you, when I get to Washington, D.C., I'll let myself go. I'll gain 100 pounds and like that, okay? So I'll stop dressing so sexy and awesome and all that, okay? So I'll let myself go when I get to Washington, D.C. So I won't be this gorgeous, okay? But yeah, for whatever reason you're thinking this guy shouldn't be my representative, that's probably the marketing that's pulling you away from your wise mind. Come back to the wise mind, make a choice based on the wise mind. Does this person have what it takes to make Oregon's 6th congressional district America's greatest congressional district? Will he improve the prosperity of the district? Will he represent me adequately? Will he listen to what I have to say? And yes, I will listen. I will listen. I'm an engineer. Engineers listen to all sides of the story. We take a systems approach to solving any problem. And that's, you will be hiring an engineer to go to Washington, D.C. to take a systems approach to fixing America's problems, okay? And so that's what I'm saying there. So the narrative pipeline, emotionally charged framing, wise mind disengages, group identity forms, followers enforce the narrative, harm becomes justified, and this happens on all sides. And the narrative pipeline that I'm talking about is, political marketing. And part of that narrative with ICE equaling Gestapo. We hear all the time, oh, ICE is fascism, the government's fascist, Donald Trump is fascist, blah, blah, blah. This comparison appears frequently. Let's examine it structurally, not emotionally. And once again, this is the kind of person that I am. I'm going to look at things logically. Just say, okay, ICE is Gestapo. I don't think ICE is Gestapo. Let's look into it. Let's take an actual systems approach to what is being said. Let's take a systems approach to the narrative and figure this out. Okay, so the Gestapo was in Nazi Germany. It was enforced ideology. They operated outside the law. There was no due process. Indefinite detention. Torture was routine. Targeted beliefs, speech, identity, and they answered directly to Hitler. They policed thought. Now, ICE in the United States, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, they enforce the statutes passed by Congress, so they are enforcing the actual law. They're subject to the courts. The warrants are required, so they do have warrants. Legal representation is available, so I mean, even if they do arrest you, you have legal representation available to you. Oversight by judiciary and legislature, so, Congress, the people control ICE, that targets immigration violations and criminal networks. They police legal status. These guys police thought. These guys police legal status. So me as a logical person, I'm thinking, that doesn't sound like Gestapo to me. So the key there is Gestapo eliminated dissent, ICE enforces laws. These are structural opposites. The comparison persists because Gestapo is an emotionally powerful idea. The whole concept of Gestapo is emotionally powerful, and that's marketing. And this is what I said about marketing. Marketing gets you to come away from the wise mind into your emotional mind. I put emotional over here, right? Emotional, yeah. Anyways, yeah, marketing gets you to work away from your wise mind into your emotional mind and make decisions based on your emotional mind, okay? The wise mind is where you want to be whenever you make decisions. And this is something I'm going to encourage. This is something I'm going to constantly talk about and say, hey, look, we have to make decisions based on what the wise mind thinks, not the emotional, not the logical, but the wise mind. Okay, this is how we're going to satisfy the most people, is by listening to the wise mind. And this is what critical thinking does. Critical thinking is just taking away all of the emotional thoughts and concentrating on wisdom. Okay, so that's where I'm at. Political marketing stooges. A political marketing stooge accepts narratives without verification, defends contradictions, attacks dissent, updates beliefs when told to, not because of logic, because of identity. And this is something I was talking about in my last video, is that you're a free thinker if you associate yourself with a group of people because of the way you think. I think this way, therefore I'm a Republican. I think this way, therefore I'm a Democrat. I think this way, therefore I'm a conservative. I think this way, therefore I'm a liberal. Okay? You associate yourself with the people who support your ideas, who support your thoughts, who support you as a wise person. Okay? If you think a certain way because you associate yourself with liberals or conservatives, Republicans, Democrats, whatever, that makes you the stooge. That makes you the stooge for political marketing. Political marketing has decided how you should think and how you should act. So political marketing is the way you are acting. You are doing something because political marketing tells you to do it, not because your wise mind is engaged and acting according to your best beliefs, the way you feel. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about with that slide there. So the education parallel. There are two kinds of learners, credential seekers and builders. And this is something I was discussing before. And this goes with the perception over reality. The credential things. A long time ago, the government came up with an idea to help American corporations. And the way the government's going to help the American corporations is by hiring people straight out of college. And that sounds terrific, because you want your most educated people, you want your smartest and most intelligent people to occupy jobs in corporations, right? I mean, it makes perfect sense. The problem is that just because a person has an education, that doesn't necessarily mean that person can use that education. Okay? When you're in college, the emphasis is on memorizing and regurgitating. When you're in a corporation, the emphasis is on outdoing the competition. And you outdo the competition by examining your own process, looking at your process, saying, okay, we can make this improvement, this improvement, this improvement. Every step in the process has a tool, environment, and training. You know, how do I improve the tool? Can I make a better machine? Can I train people better? Can I improve the environment? That's what manufacturing engineers do. We go in, we look at the environment, the tools, the training, and we try to make improvements in any of these places. So what happened was you got a whole bunch of really smart, really educated people in these places, and they started working and learning how to do the process. Well, a lot of times these people just they became comfortable doing this process, and you see, they're not supposed to be doing the process. They're too highly educated. What they're supposed to do is improve the process. Well, they weren't making the improvements, they were just occupying the space. And what management would do is say, like, well, this person's good at this because this person has the education. Well, that's not true. The person was good at this because the person did this thing a whole bunch of times. Now, what happens is you have this really, really smart person, and instead of making improvements, this person has just become really comfortable in this one area. And you see, that's a problem, because you're paying for somebody, the corporation is paying for somebody who has a master's degree or a PhD, when a person with a high school degree or maybe an associate's degree would be perfectly fine. So you're paying $150,000 a year for somebody when you could actually be paying $50,000 a year for a person who could do just as good of a job. So what they were looking for is education rather than experience. And the education made them think this person's going to be able to do the job, and the person can do the job, it's just costing way too much. So the government comes along and says, oh, you should be paying $50,000 a year, but you're paying $150,000 a year. So what we, the government, will do is provide the company with subsidies so that the company can go ahead and keep this person on the payroll. So the government is paying the company $100,000 a year to keep this person on the payroll, when this person shouldn't be doing this job. This person should be doing all kinds of research and making improvements to the job. Like I said, that's what manufacturing engineers do. We make improvements to the equipment, to the training, to the environment. These people aren't making those improvements because they're comfortable in these jobs. But the company looked for credentials rather than work experience, rather than the capacity to actually make improvements. And you see, this is what I'm talking about on this slide here. There's two kinds of learners: credential seekers and builders. Type of the credential seekers, education as elevation, the GPA as authority, grade point average as authority, degrees as identity, titles over outcomes, and status over contribution. I'm important because of my credentials. Essentially this engineer is saying, look, I can do this job because I have a PhD in chemical engineering, in mechanical engineering, in computer engineering, or something like that. See, And the reality is you shouldn't be doing that job. You should be making improvements to that job so that somebody who has an associate's degree or a high school degree can do that job, so that you can move on to the next job. You are occupying that job because you've decided not to move on, not to go anywhere. You see, that's a problem there. So anyways, the builders, education as expression. Learning serves results. Curiosity precedes credentials. Quietly improves systems, creates measurable value. I learn so I can build. Okay, so this is my life story here. Okay, when I was in the Marine Corps, 84 to 88, I got out of the Marine Corps in 88. I started going to college. I got a job in Phoenix at the Motorola facility. And yep, microphone's still connected, good. At the Motorola facility, I told them, look, I'm going to college. I want to finish my bachelor's degree. And they're saying, hey, it's terrific. We will reimburse your classes. We'll pay for you to go to college. And this is terrific. So I'm like, okay, great. So I went ahead, went to college while I was working. I worked. I figured out all the processes and everything. And I said, hey, great. Now I know all the processes. I know how everything works. And I've got an education. So I can use my education to make improvements to the system. And I did. I reduced the cost of manufacturing by millions and millions and millions of dollars. And I think, did I put that on there? Yeah, my personal experience at a former company, one engineer cited his 4.0 grade point average. I reduced manufacturing costs by millions. He had credentials, I delivered outcomes. The organization rewarded visibility over value. And this is what happened to me, was the organization said, yeah, it's great that you have reduced the cost of production and manufacturing by tens of millions of dollars, maybe even hundreds of millions of dollars. But the thing is, he's got a 4.0 grade point average. And when it comes down to it, management at the company is going to come down and say, hey, why aren't you hiring this person with a 4.0 grade point average? Why are you hiring this person? My grade point average, I think, was like 3.5, 3.2, something like that, which is, it's a good grade point average, but it's not a 4.0. Okay, and so upper management is going to look at the tens of millions of dollars, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars that I've saved them, and they're going to think, well, we're a $20 billion a year company. A person who comes along and saves us $100 million, I mean, yeah, that's good, but we're a $20 billion a year company. So who cares about $100 million? So that's kind of the thing that happened, was the company said, this guy's got a 4.0 grade point average and this guy doesn't, so we're going to take the 4.0 grade point average over them. Well, Motorola didn't do too well. They fell. They were in third place worldwide, and nowadays they exist. They changed their name to Freescale. They went down and down and down. They didn't do very well. They changed their name to Freescale, and they joined up with, I think, Maxim Semiconductor or something like that. They were in third place worldwide, and then just collapsed. So this whole idea of choosing the perception over the reality was not good for the company. That's the whole idea that trying to get across there. So the same patterns in politics. Credentialism becomes ideology. Instead of look at what I built, it becomes look who I am. Identity replaces performance. And this is part of the reason that I want to create these videos, is I want you, the voter, to understand that, yes, I am a Republican, but being a Republican doesn't mean so much to me that I'm only going to care about the Republican point of view. Okay, I care about Oregon. I support, if you ask me, do you support ICE? I'm going to tell you, I support the Constitution of the United States of America. I support law and order. I support business. I support personal growth. I support a progressive ideology that brings to the American citizen the rights to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Any kind of government action, any kind of government policy that reduces somebody's rights to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness is something I'm going to be against. Any ideology that increases an individual's access to their rights to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, I'm going to support. Just because I'm a Republican doesn't mean I'm not going to listen to the Democrats. I don't buy into the whole credentials over performance. I look at performance. I look at what a person has actually accomplished. And this is one of the things that our present representative for the 6th Congressional District, Andrea Salinas, I look at her accomplishments, and she has accomplished a couple things, but mostly what I hear her saying is Donald Trump bad. Donald Trump bad. That's what. Our tax dollars are paying $178,000 a year for her to go to Washington, D.C. and try to make Oregon's 6th Congressional District America's greatest congressional district. And what we're getting is Donald Trump bad, Republicans bad. Okay, that's not what you deserve. What you deserve is to be listened to. You deserve to be heard. And you deserve that because you're an American citizen. And the Constitution guarantees your rights. If we follow the ideas of the Constitution, if we follow the principles of the Constitution, then our principles, our founding principles, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, are respected and are provided by the United States citizen. And this is why you, the voter, you deserve a person in government that is going to listen to what you need and is going to provide you with what you need. Not excuses. Okay, you don't need excuses. If you say, well, why hasn't this been done? I'm not going to give you an excuse. Well, the president's an idiot. The president's bad. The president's terrible. Okay? What happens in Congress is the most important part of what happens in American government. Congressional representatives decide where the money goes. Now, there are several places in Oregon's 6th Congressional District that I think can use federal funding. Cancer research, robotics research, fuel research. Right now in Oregon, we don't have any fuel refineries. We get all of our gas and our diesel from Washington state refineries. Now, if anything bad happens to the Washington state refineries, that's going to happen in Oregon also. We need refineries in Oregon. The problem is they aren't profitable for oil companies. Well, we have to make them profitable somehow. We have to figure out what it's going to take to get companies, oil companies, gas companies, to refine their oil into gas and diesel so that we can have it in Oregon. These are the things that representatives should be concentrating on. We should be trying to make Oregon the best state in America, and every representative in Oregon should be concentrating on making his or her congressional district the best district in America. You see, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to concentrate on making Oregon's 6th Congressional District America's greatest congressional district. There's a robotics company in town, Agility Robotics, and they make humanoid robots. Humanoid robots. I accentuate that. Robots. That's silly. I've mentioned this to Andrea Salinas a few times, and she hasn't responded. There are things that we can do in America. One of my presentations before was on these little devices that go. They're programmable logic controllers. They go into everything in America. They purify our water. They handle our sewage. The traffic lights are handled by them. Well, they're all made in China. And the Chinese government would be irresponsible if they didn't put some kind of malware into these programmable logic controllers that control America's infrastructure. So we can assume that anything that comes from China that's programmable has malware on it. And this is something that I know about because I'm a manufacturing engineer. I'm not saying Andrea Salinas is bad or stupid or terrible or irresponsible. What I'm saying is I know things that can help Oregon's 6th Congressional District become much, much more prosperous. I understand manufacturing. I understand corporate America. I understand how to bring prosperity to Oregon and Oregon's 6th Congressional District. And the reason I know about these things, I'm an engineer. Engineers know these things. And the type of thinking I'm going to use is a systematic approach. I'm going to approach any problem. We have unemployment. Approach that problem. We have homeless. Approach that problem systematically. Housing crisis. Once again, all these problems can be approached systematically, with using the wise mind and the logical mind, the emotional mind all together. We can approach these problems systematically, solve these problems systematically. Right now, we're getting a whole bunch of excuses, and the main excuse is we couldn't get this done because Donald Trump bad. Well, Donald Trump does not control the United States House of Representatives. The United States House of Representatives controls Donald Trump. If your representative is not making improvements to your congressional district, that's not the president, it's your congressional representative. Okay, so you have to vote for somebody who gives you an idea of how improvements are going to be made. So, see, that's what I'm talking about right here. So, are you a stooge or are you a free thinker? So, party affiliation test. Ask you, do I belong to a party because it reflects my values, or do I have these values because I belong to a party? This is your autonomy test. This is, are you thinking with your wise mind, or are you being influenced by marketing? The healthy alignment is your values will lead you to a party. The party is conditional. Values are stable. The party can be abandoned if it drifts. Individual agency is preserved. So your values, your personal values, should lead you to a party. The marketing capture happens when your party determines your values. And that's kind of what's happening right now in America. And this is one of the things I'm kind of disappointed with Andrea Salinas, is that she's supporting the marketing narrative where the party is determining your values. Right now, the marketing people are telling you ICE is bad, don't pay attention to the daycare scandal, don't pay attention to the corruption, don't pay attention to the loss of billions of dollars, billions of your dollars, your tax dollars are going away, they're disappearing. They're going to Somalia and paying for terrorist organizations. And the reason your money is disappearing and going to Somalia is because the representatives in Congress aren't doing the job that they're supposed to do in getting the federal government to eliminate the corruption, to eliminate what's happening. So what your representatives are doing now is telling you that because you're affiliated with a party, you should have these values. And that makes you a stooge. It makes you a political marketing stooge. If your values are the result of your party telling you what your values are, that makes you a stooge. Okay, so if your identity is fused to affiliation, if your beliefs are updated by the narrative, if contradictions are rationalized and leaving feels impossible, your agency has been outsourced and marketing has captured you. You are a marketing stooge. This is the stooge test now. Water good. If your party changes its values, do you change your values to stay with the party, or do you leave the party to keep your values? That tells you everything. Distributed enforcements. Once captured, people shame each other. They police speech, they dox opponents, they excuse violence, they justify harm, not directed centrally, they volunteer enforcement. Okay? The tragic outcome here is people don't die for facts, they die for narratives. Political marketing creates the conditions, followers complete the process. And this is what we're talking about with these nurses and doctors who go on YouTube and Twitch or wherever they go on, X. And they have these videos and they say, do this, do that, do the other thing. We're right, they're wrong. And they're giving up their freedom. They're giving up their financial independence. They're giving up everything that they have worked to accomplish because the marketing narrative has taken hold of their wise mind and pushed them into their emotional mind. The marketing narrative is deciding for these people what their values are, what way they should think. And you see, that's what I don't want you to do. I don't want you. I'm a Republican. Okay, and the reason I'm a Republican is because my reasons. I like small government. I like the idea of free markets. I like localized decision making. I think that the purpose of the individual is a certain thing. So I'm a Republican because my values align with Republican values. But I don't want you to give up your values. If you have Democrat values, if you like large government, if you like centralized planning, centralized authority, if you like socialism, I can listen to all that. You have to have a good argument. You have to have a rational, reasonable argument. Your argument can't be, well, I like it this way, and if you don't like it this way, you're a Nazi. Okay, because I'm not a Nazi, and I'm not going to let you label me as a Nazi. If I don't like your idea, it's not because I'm a Nazi. It's because I don't think your idea takes a systems approach to fixing a problem. I think that maybe you need to rethink what you're supporting and come back later with a refined idea, a refined approach. Okay, but I am going to listen to what you have to say. I'm not going to say, oh, you're a Democrat, click. I'm not going to do that, because being an engineer, being a critical thinker means listening to all sides of an argument. It means letting go of your pride, letting go of your emotional side, letting go of your logical side, listening to the wise mind, listening to people, listening to whatever they have to say. Remember, information is the most valuable commodity in the world, and if you don't listen to information that is being presented to you, well, you're doing yourself an injustice, and you're doing the people you represent an injustice. So with me, you're not going to get excuses. If something doesn't happen, I'm not going to say, well, it's because the president's an idiot and people in Congress are idiots or anything like that. I'll tell you, well, we did not create as good an argument as was necessary. I'm going to go back with a better argument. I'm going to go back with some kind of compromise that maybe we can get past. But we are going to work progressively towards making Oregon's 6th congressional district America's greatest congressional district. Okay, that is the objective. So anyways, back to my little slideshow here. Yeah, this isn't about left or right. It affects the conservatives, liberals, Republicans, Democrats. Same psychology, different branding. The builders versus believers. The builders create systems, solve problems, and they measure results. The believers, they defend narratives, they signal identity, they enforce conformity. Civilizations are built by builders. And this goes back to what I was talking about with the corporation that I worked for. I saved millions, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars in manufacturing costs. If everybody in the corporation saved hundreds of millions of dollars for the corporation, I mean, eventually the corporation is going to be working much, much more effectively, much more cheaply. So that would make me a builder. Okay. The alternative, the believers, these are the people who are going to say, no, the fact that you made $100 billion or $100 million in profit for the company doesn't matter. What matters is I have a 4.0 grade point average. That's all that matters. I have a 4.0 grade point average. I'm smarter than you. I'm worth more than you to the company. You have to leave the company. And eventually I left the company. The company went to crap, did not do very well over the years, and nowadays I think they're in like 27th place or maybe even below that. I don't know. But anyways, yeah, these are the believers, and the believers are going to hold on to a narrative until they crash, until everything falls apart. And then the builders are going to come by. People like me are going to come by, they're going to rebuild, and we're going to do a failure analysis. We're going to say, okay, this is what happened. We adopted this philosophy thinking that it's going to work, and it may have worked. One thing that we're doing, years ago, Oregon made drugs legal. And people came to Oregon because it was perfectly legal to do drugs. And what we were doing is we were taking Portugal did this. Portugal found that the cost of policing drugs, doing all this stuff, was just astronomical. They could no longer keep up with putting people in jail and policing all the drugs and everything. So Portugal said, look, we're going to decriminalize drugs. And what they did was they decriminalized drugs, and they gave people who did drugs clean needles. They gave them places to go to do drugs. They provided the people with all kinds of things that would help them out. Well, in Oregon, we decriminalized drugs, but we didn't follow through with the rest of the program. And you see, that is a critical flaw. We did a good thing by decriminalizing the drugs, but we didn't provide these people a safe space to do drugs. We didn't provide them with safe needles, with safe environment. We just let them go onto the street and do their drugs and pass out and just die on the street while kids are coming home. Children are walking home from school, and they have to walk over crack pipes and crystal meth addicts that are passed out and everything. They have to endure this. Okay, this didn't happen in Portugal. It didn't happen in the Netherlands and in Amsterdam. It didn't happen anywhere in Europe where drugs were decriminalized. That's why their success was very high and our success was very low. So you see, that's where failure analysis comes in. Failure analysis is a very important part of systems analysis. We say, well, it would be nice if we had highly educated people working these positions. But the reality is anybody can work these positions. The objective of the manufacturing engineer is to make this job as so simple that a person with a high school degree can do it without much effort. Okay, and that's what I would do. Problem is, these people with PhDs come in and start doing these jobs, and they think, I'm making $150,000 doing a job that I could do with a high school degree. Why would I leave this job? Right? So that's why the job shouldn't pay as much as it does. That's why we shouldn't be paying people because of their degrees. We should be paying people because of what profitability they provide for the company. So you see, that's a systems approach, a systems analysis to the problem. And it's a good idea, just very poor execution. So that's what I'm talking about when we talk about the builders and the believers. Civilizations are created, they're built by builders, okay? So personal sovereignty. A healthy citizen thinks independently, questions their own side, leaves when values diverge, and refuses narrative coercion. This is civic responsibility. This is just being an adult. And it's like I said, you have to be a free thinker. The reason I went away from the Republican Party and became a Democrat is because I was a free thinker. My parents didn't like it, but I didn't like what Ronald Reagan and his Republican people were doing, and I certainly didn't much care for what George Bush Sr. was doing eventually. I liked what Bill Clinton was doing, so I stayed with the Democrat Party as long as Bill Clinton and his policies were doing well for the country. And I liked Barack Obama. I thought Barack Obama was doing some great stuff for the country, so I voted for Barack Obama in his second term. So I voted for Bill Clinton in his second term also. I just thought they were doing a great job. So the reason that I'm a Republican now is because I saw the Democrats straying away from what I thought were good policies. So now I'm a Republican, and it's not because the Republicans are telling me what to do, it's because I'm telling myself what to do, and the Republicans are supporting my personal ideology, my personal feelings on what the government should do. And that's really what I'm saying you should do as a citizen. You should select a party according to your personal values. Don't be a stooge, be a free thinker. So political marketing doesn't ask you to think, it asks you to feel. When feeling replaces thinking, perception replaces reality. Choose values first and parties second. Always keep your wise mind. And you know, this is the important thing. It's like I've been saying all through the whole thing, is that, and I'm probably going to talk about this a couple other times, political marketing is a business. They are paid for results. The results that politicians want is votes. They want your votes. They want you, the politicians want you to vote for them. The political marketing job is to get you to vote for them. That makes you the product. You are not the consumer, you are the product. The political marketing companies come along and they try to shape your narrative. They try to get you to shape your narrative according to the political party you're affiliated with. And this is something that Donald Trump did in his first term, is he started calling any Republican that doesn't follow what I say is a Republican in name only, rhino. He created that term. He said, yeah, people, the Republicans who are doing what, they're just rhinos. They're Republican in name only. Well, he hasn't been doing that this term. And the reason he hasn't been doing that is because he saw how ineffective that was in his first term, and he saw how Republicans alienated Donald Trump for using that term. I mean, you've got professional people in Congress, in the House of Representatives and Senate, and they're supporting an idea because they support this idea. They were put in Congress because of the ideas that they support, because of the things that they support, because of the values that they have. And Donald Trump is coming along and saying, you don't support Donald Trump, you're a Republican in name only. And that was an insult for a lot of the Republicans in the House of Representatives and the Senate. And it was an insult to a lot of Americans who voted for Republicans, because Republicans, the Republicans they voted for, they upheld the values of the people who were voting for them. So part of the reason that the Republicans lost in 2020 is because of Donald Trump's heavy-handed approach to trying to control Congress. Well, he has learned from his mistakes, and he's not using the whole rhino thing anymore. He's saying, well, okay, let's look at a failure analysis. Why did I lose in 2020? Well, yeah, maybe part of the thing, and maybe the election was stolen, but there were a lot of people who voted against me that I thought would vote for me. Why were they voting against me? Okay, well, I was doing this in Congress, and I was doing that and the other thing. So failure analysis says these were good ideas, these were bad ideas. Let's get away from the bad ideas and stay with the good ideas. And the good ideas that Donald Trump has now is just do what Congress is telling you to do. Stay with your job. These are some good things, and this is why I say, yeah, I want to make America great again, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to make America great again, but mostly I am in make Oregon's 6th congressional district America's greatest congressional district. That's why you should send me to Congress. Send me to Congress because I am going to concentrate on improving the prosperity of Oregon and Oregon's 6th congressional district. I'm going to look at all of the job possibilities, all of the potential that we have in Oregon. Electricity, we have electric power plants, and yep, hasn't fallen off yet. The power plants that we use in Oregon, we have biomass. And what biomass is, we go out and cut down every tree in the forest, and we take it to a chipping mill, and that chipping mill takes the chips, ships it to a power plant, and the power plant burns the wood in the forests that supplies Oregon with electricity. And our forests are going away. Oregon's huge, beautiful forests are going away, being consumed. I have certain ideas on how to make that stop. One of the ideas I have is these small modular reactors. These small modular nuclear reactors are extremely safe. They're very small, like the name says. They're modular, and you can build them very inexpensively. We could build a whole bunch of them out in East Oregon. And with these built in East Oregon, Oregon could supply a lot of electricity to Oregon's electric grid. We could get more electric cars. With electricity being cheaper, we could invest more heavily in electric cars. That would be a good idea. Plus, we could export the electricity to Washington, California, Nevada, Montana, Idaho. It could be exported all over the place. That's what nuclear power is good for. Nuclear power is good for creating a lot of electricity very inexpensively. Now, what about the radioactive waste? Well, America has the best method of dealing with radioactive waste. We've got radioactive waste all over America. We take it, we seal it up in these casks, these concrete and steel casks. But the important thing is that we would be reducing the amount of deforestation that happens in Oregon. And for the people whose jobs depend on the deforestation, well, if supply diminishes, then prices go up. So they could actually remove, they could still keep logging. It's just that if they reduce the amount of logging that they do, the value of the wood, the timber that they harvest is going to go up. So you can keep the same number of people logging, and they'll be paid, actually get paid more. So that's one of the things that I'd be looking into. So, to improve the prosperity of Oregon and Oregon's 6th Congressional District. So, that's the kind of thing that I would be looking into if I go to Washington, D.C. And that's why I'd love to have you send me to Washington, D.C., because as a manufacturing engineer, I've got a lot of good ideas that I think would really help America in general and Oregon's 6th Congressional District specifically. A lot of good stuff, a lot of good ideas. Plus, I'd listen to the stuff that you have to say, and I would adjust my direction, not my philosophies, but my direction according to your input, what you have to say. So, anyways, yeah, choose your values first and your parties second. Always keep your wise mind. And this is the raccoon of ended presentations. These are the 10 things that I plan on making happen whenever, if I do get to Washington, D.C. I support President Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. I think he's doing a great job. I support Tulsi Gabbard for president in 2028. And I support the Make America Great Again movement, but mostly I support Make Oregon's 6th Congressional District America's greatest congressional district. And that will be my objective if you send me to Washington, D.C. Thank you for listening to me, and God bless.